One of the things that I've noted as a school psychologist for the past 19 years, in addition to working as an adjunct professor at Xavier University in the Department of Education, has been that it's very important that children engage in some type of structured learning activities prior to the beginning of formal schooling. So having them engage in some pre-academic activities such as establishing letter recognition, shape recognition, color differentiation, learning sequences of tasks to complete as well. Those are all very crucial in establishing good dispositions for learning down the road. Having a routine especially can be very helpful so that children begin to have a schedule they're adhering to. It lessens the difficulty of transitioning to a more structured learning environment. So as much as you can mirror that type of a pattern at home, children will really be aided by that once they make that leap to a more formalized school setting. It's very important that children also adhere to a schedule for sleep, that they receive ample amounts of sleep on a nightly basis. Young children require up to 13 to 15 hours of sleep during a 24-hour period, so making sure that that's established can actually promote brain development and make them more acclimated for learning eventually. Unfortunately, a lot of times children aren't expected to do chores anymore, and we know that chores not only help a child understand kind of the sequences of action, how do we complete a task from beginning to end, but it also allows them to develop a sense of task persistence, so sticking with something until it's been completed. In addition, the sense of chores giving a platform for children to get some type of recognition or positive reinforcement for their accomplishment can also help them to become a little bit more well-equipped in understanding what they do well and getting that kind of very specific praise. Oftentimes young children lack the capacity to engage in lengthy types of reading activities, but if we can engage them in reading-related activities, that as well can be important. So whether it be through the use of picture books or books that introduce basic, simple types of vocabulary, or it can even be more kind of engaging your child in the world of reading, such as taking them to a library or taking them to a bookstore. Important for parents too to model reading and to understand in the young child's mind how important that is. One way to do that is to incorporate a nightly reading session, if you will, into your routine every night so that all family members are engaged in reading. If a child lacks the capacity to be able to read independently, that can be an opportunity where maybe they can be read to by a parent, by an older sibling. But again, it kind of promotes the idea that reading is important. It's something that we do every day. There's a variety of models out there about how children develop a learning style. The commonality among all of these models is that learning style is an inherited trait, that it's generally something that's acquired by parents and their learning styles. So it's not something that necessarily should be perceived as something we should be changing or looking to alter, but more that we should try to adapt to how the child learns, how they process information. So if we look at the more traditional models, we're seeing children fall into one of three categories primarily. There are the strong auditory learners, and these are children who tend to acquire words rapidly. They tend to be language rich. They tend to be more verbal, more communicative as youngsters. They may acquire the ability to develop simple sentences earlier than some of their peers. Again, it really kind of embodies that ability to understand things through discussion. Perceptual learners or visual learners are children who need to see things to generally understand them most readily. These are young children who typically develop strong eye-hand coordination very early, who are engaged in things like puzzles or playing with blocks, tend to gravitate towards those activities more readily. And then lastly, there's usually a kinesthetic or a tactile kind of a model for how children learn as well. And these are the children who may be more precocious in terms of some of their physical development. They may learn to crawl early or maybe early walkers. Children who kind of seek out physical activities, if you will, is one way to kind of identify that as a learning style. Important to understand, though, that oftentimes children don't fall squarely into one of those three categories, but they could develop what's called a dual dominance, meaning that they're equally adept at learning, say, perceptually and kinesthetically, or auditorily and perceptually. And the majority of people generally have some degree of success in learning through varied formats, and that's certainly true for young children as well. We know that for young children that engagement in physical activities is very important, as it strengthens the musculature of the body, both through gross motor activities, which would be large muscle groups, things like walking, hopping, skipping, standing on one foot, developing those affinities, as well as simple fine motor activities, which is generally developing the musculature of the hand, and obviously translates into some success with early benchmarks in school, things like writing or performing math calculations, using scissors correctly, holding a pencil correctly. Those are all really important. They can be aided by a young child who is engaged in things such as learning how to button and unbutton a coat, or zip and unzip a zipper. Again, just manipulate small objects. Generally is believed to aid in terms of the development of more effective kind of fine motor skills. You know, and also it's very important that children be allowed to engage in just free play. That's so essential. We know that there's a changing landscape in terms of the lives of young children, and unfortunately there seems to be less and less opportunity for just unstructured, just innate kind of play, that with another child or even on their own. We know that children are increasingly orienting towards more electronic type of media, so video games or computer activities, and they're very solitary. But it's important that children have the capacity to just act in a free manner that allows them to make choices for themselves, that allows them to kind of navigate among these choices and to learn from their mistakes as well as things that they've done well. And that they be allowed to do this without the intercession of their parents, that this is their time and this is how they're kind of choosing to learn and to figure out new mysteries or new challenges, if you will. It also is really important that play allows a child to practice to a point of mastery, so engaging in a jigsaw puzzle or a game or playing with another child. It's getting them to subsequently try something new. That play is the work of the child is what Maria Montessori said, and that the games and toys that they use are the tools that they use for that work. So it's very important. Play teaches children not only to interact appropriately with other children, such as taking turns and sharing and being patient, but it also provides a framework for them to begin to understand the world again that they live in. So we know that when children at a certain young age, they begin to engage in what's called parallel play, where they will mimic the play activities of children that are in their immediate area. And it's a good way for children to begin to learn through the process of direct observation. So that they're watching other children, and it provides kind of a format, if you will, for what eventually will take place in a school setting, where they'll be modeling and reproducing the activities that a teacher may generate, for instance. You know, one thing that parents can do above all else would be to instill a sense of confidence, or what psychologists will call self-efficacy in their child. Self-efficacy being defined as the belief that a child can actually achieve a task that's presented before them. And we know that self-efficacy is as important as, say, content knowledge when we're looking at performance on assessments, that it's a huge factor that can impact how well a child does. And one thing we can do to promote self-confidence, or this sense, again, of self-efficacy, is by using specific praise when working with a child on a learning activity. So avoiding statements such as good job or nice work, but giving them more indication of what they've done well. I like the way that you wrote that word, or I like the way that you were able to read that page all on your own. That's a difficult page and it had a lot of challenging words. You did a very good job at figuring those out. I like the way that you arranged the toys in your toy chest, or whatever it might be. Something that imparts a sense of specifically what that child has done well can really help to build the confidence in that young child. It's important that parents understand that they don't occupy an ancillary role when we look at children and their development and positioning them for learning, but that they are the ones on the front lines early on, that they are the ones who will start to integrate activities that prepare children for more formal learning down the road. So the decisions they make, the activities that they engage their children in are very important. And parents need to understand that they're a vital link in terms of school success, that this is not something that is done separate from them, but ideally in conjunction with them.